One problem that I see come up a lot with Tonex users is incorporating the built-in compressor into their presets of their existing tone models. A compressor can be a very useful tool or it can be a very damaging tool, but we need to understand what is going on with it. So there is one thing we really need to watch out for when utilizing the built-in compressor in Tonex. Now, I've done some videos about the compressor in the past, but I'm just going to focus on one aspect of it today to make sure that you're not maybe making tweaks to your tone models and presets that are causing some compressor issues if you do have that turned on. So we're going to talk about that first. I'm also going to showcase something that I'm extremely excited about. I recently took delivery of an amp that I've wanted for a very long time, which is a Two-Rock Studio Signature amp. What an incredible sounding amp, and I've done some incredible captures for it for Tonex, and those are all available on my website as of now. There's also going to be some free samples down there. I'm going to have the links below. You can go grab a little sample of that, try it out, see what you think. And there's going to basically be 3 collections of this amp and then a huge collection incorporating all the different sounds. There's a lot of sounds trapped in this little amp, and I've got to say these have turned out to be some of my favorite tone models I've ever created. The bundles are going to include amp and cab captures of the head through a 112 Two-Rock cabinet with a Two-Rock speaker in it. Incredible, just amazing sounding amp overall. And they're also going to include the DI capture. So there's just endless array of tones here. Some subtle but meaningful differences between some of the settings on these. So we're going to get to those later. I'm going to play you those with humbucker pickups with single coils out of the mix. And I'm going to play you a couple demo videos of it in the mix. And if you're so inclined, go grab the free samples below or grab the entire collection if you like what you hear. But first of all, let's get right to discussing this problem that potentially lies in using a compressor within Tonex. All right, so here I am in Tonex. Now, what I'm utilizing here is my new Two-Stone Ultimate collection. I'm just going to use one of the tones here to talk about the compressor. This is the tone here. This is basically when you see the number 1, this is the lowest amount of gain, and the down is the gain structure switch. We're going to have down, mid, and up. So here is just one sample of this. Really very sweet sounding amp. But more on that later. Let's get into the compressor here first and foremost. I usually put this on all of my presets, and what I do is I get it. You'll see here on the gain reduction meter to just kind of kick in when I'm really hitting. If I'm hitting really soft, move that cursor out of the way. Just kind of handling the peaks. It's not really doing too much. Now that's going to be controlled with my threshold. Now, the interesting thing is here, we can either have this in pre or in post. Now, if I have it in pre, it's acting off of the dry guitar signal. The guitar is hitting the compressor first, then it's going to the amplifier. If I have it in post, then I'm hitting the amplifier first with my unaffected guitar tone, and then the amplifier tone is hitting the compressor. Now, either way you run it is fine. Really depends on what you want. Some people like to have it in pre and control just what the guitar is doing. And that's fine if that's what you want. I'm not here to tell you how you have to run your compressor, just to be careful of something. Now, let's say that I've set this up for this guitar, which is fairly low output humbucker pickups, more of a vintage style. These are Gibson burst buckers in this SG. Now, let's say I set that up for the compressor to work the way I want it to, and I switch to another guitar with higher output pickups. Let's take a look and see what happens. You'll notice here, the meter is barely moving when I hit hard. Now I've switched over to my Vigier Excalibur with a DiMarzio Tone Zone pickup. This is a much higher output pickup. Watch what happens on the bridge pickup here when I hit this now. You'll notice that I'm getting much more gain reduction, and that's because I'm hitting the front of the compressor, since it's in pre mode, with a lot more level, because this guitar is much higher output. Now, that might be fine. That might be what you want. You might want that compressor to control the overall level and keep things kind of squashed, but that sound is much more squashed now. And the compressor is pretty much always working. And this is where a lot of people run into problems. They go, all of a sudden when I switch guitars, my sound kind of is really squashed and doesn't sound good. And they don't realize that it could just very well be that they're hitting the front of their compressor harder. Again, this is not right or wrong, just be aware of it. So what can we do to rectify that? Well, with a guitar with higher output, we would have to bring our threshold back. Now you'll see what happened is, I'm back to it just working when I want it to. So that's something you really have to keep in mind when switching guitars with your compressor set to pre-mode. Now we're coming back here with the lower output pickups on my Gibson SG, and I'm just going to bring this back up to where it was. Okay, so now let's move that to post mode. Now, it's not going to react just off of the direct guitar. It's going to react now, imagine the compressor over here, just before the reverb. It's going to react on what's coming out of the amp now. So, changing guitars won't have as dramatic an effect because the amp itself will act a little bit like a compressor in some ways, especially if it's a distorted tone. But what we do have to be careful of when having our compressor in post, keep in mind it's after the amp and the cab now. Now what's going to happen is if I come in and control my volume here on my tone model, on my amp tone model, watch what happens. Got just the right amount of compression. Now I've got way more compression. That may not be what you want, and we're probably also not getting the volume boost we want. Watch what happens if I disable the compressor, come back here to a setting of 5. We get quite a volume jump, but with the compressor engaged, we don't get quite as much of a volume jump because the compressor actually squashes down on that extra volume. So if we've got our compressor dialed in the way that we want, and we want to raise our overall level, we should really come to the gain control on the compressor. You'll see when I raise that up, I get a lot more volume, but the compression amount doesn't change because I'm using basically kind of what we call makeup gain. So the two things to keep in mind, when set in pre-mode on the compressor, your threshold may or may not have to be adjusted depending on the guitar we're using and depending on if we feel like we're getting too much compression. If we use a higher output guitar on a preset we set up with a lower output guitar, we are going to get more compression. If that's what you want, wonderful. But just be aware of it. If we have our compressor set to post, if we adjust the volume or anything on the amp, it's going to hit the front of that compressor harder and make it act more compression. There's going to be more gain reduction. May or may not be what we want, but be aware of it. And then we can use our final gain control here to control our overall output. All right, now let's take a listen to some of these tone models from what I feel is my incredible new Two-Stone SS Ultimate bundle. We're going to listen to it with some humbucker pickups and some single coils. Okay, so we'll get going here first of all, just as with an explanation of what this is all about. We have Two-Stone, well, JS my initials, Two-Stone 1 down. So on this amp, there's a gain structure switch. There's a down, a mid, and an up. Each are voiced differently. The mid being a little higher output. I believe the down switch is more of like a Fender Blackface mid scooped. And the up position is more the standard kind of two-rock signature tone. There's also 3 toggle switches on the front, which are a bright switch, a mid switch, a mid boost switch, and a deep switch. So if you see B, it means the bright switch was engaged. If you see BD, it's bright and deep. BM would be bright and mid. BMD would be bright, mid, and deep. So you kind of get the idea. Now, there's some subtle but meaningful differences between these. So let's listen to this bridge pickup. This is just the gain structure in the down position. Go to the neck pickup. Middle position. Really sweet, clean tones on this. Now, if I go from this and engage that bright switch, get a little more snap out of it. warmer there. Really nice in the neck position. Moving on to the bright with the deep switch. A little bit fatter and a little bit with that snappiness to it. That's the neck pickup. Now, moving on to the bright with the mid switch. So really subtle differences, but very meaningful. Some beautiful tones there. So now we move on to just the deep switch. Just the mid switch. And the mid and the deep switch. So you can really hear there's subtle differences, but depending on the guitar we're using, the situation we have, it's really nice to have all of those. Now, if we move on, we'll skip over the mid. We'll go to gain level 2 in this down position for the gain structure. Switch. I went for a really nice, smooth, vintagey vibe out of this. I also have the DI tone models with this, which always tend to be a little bit edgier and brighter. So I thought it balanced nicely. So there's really best of both worlds for anybody who gets these collections. Neck pickup. What a gorgeous sounding amp. Now with the deep switch engaged, very thick. Moving on to the mid switch engaged here. This is where you get the most gain. That mid switch seems to push the middle a little bit and get it to break up a little more. Everything will be timestamped below if you want to just jump to different parts of the video. Mid and deep switch. Gotta get through these a little faster. Now, moving on to the third level of gain. This is where the amp is going to be cranked up. The beauty of this, though, is how nicely it cleans up. If I roll that volume back. Just beautiful. Now with the deep switch on. The mid switch is going to be the most gain now. and finally the mid and deep switch on. All right, so now let's go and we'll take a listen to the amp with the gain structure switch in the mid position. I'll just try to play through these more or less talking here. Let's move on to the second level of gain on the mid gain structure setting. Probably the highest amount of gain. But also voiced differently. Moving on to the third level of gain on that gain structure set on mid. And finally, going to the up position on the gain structure. Lots of possibilities here with all of those different settings captured. Now move on to the up position for the second level of gain. Really lovely stuff. Moving on to the up position for the final level of gain. So just a huge array of tones with some really meaningful changes by using the different settings on the amp. Let's run through these really quickly again. This time I'll go straight through utilizing a Tele style guitar so you can hear what they sound like with some single coil pickups. Here I have my Sir Classic T Tele style guitar, and I'll just run through some of these different tones. So this deep switch on, really nice with a bright pickup, like a bridge pickup on a Tele style guitar. Onto the mid setting on that gain structure switch. Here's the gain structure on the up position. So you can really hear those little subtle but really meaningful differences. Now moving on to the second level of gain structure in the down position. Moving through these a little quicker. Really love it with that mid switch engaged. Moving on to the third level of gain now. So there you have it. Sorry for all the noodling. I wanted you to kind of get a good idea of what those tones sounded like with humbuckers, with single coils, and try to just get through them quick enough to give you an idea still. But I'd like to let you hear these utilized together in a mix. I'm going to play you 2 demo videos, one utilizing one of the gain structure positions, another utilizing a different one, to give you an idea of what these tones sound like in the mix. I hope you enjoy. All right, so there you have it. I really hope that that little compressor tip I gave today helped some folks to get more out of their Tonex presets. I know from talking with so many folks, whether it be on Line 6 Helix or Tonex, a lot of people run into this idea that compression just is useless. It's not doing what they want it to. And a lot of times it's just because of a misunderstanding of how to approach using it. Being aware that what we feed into it is going to affect how it behaves. And if it's doing something that we don't want, we need to possibly adjust to make it react in a way that's going to be beneficial rather than harmful. So I hope you enjoy that. So go grab the free sample download for the Two Stone SS Ultimate Collection. I hope you enjoy that. If you're so inclined, grab one of the collections or maybe the complete bundle if you're so inclined, you like what you heard. I'm really loving enjoying these tones. Probably some of my favorite, right in my wheelhouse of the kind of tones I like to mess around with. And you have both the amp and cab captures and the DIs that come with a custom IR kind of baked into it. And I think it just gives you the best of everything. And I hope you can get some really inspiring tones there if you decide to grab a bundle. Thank you guys so much for sharing your time with me. Like I said, I hope that was helpful. Please like the video, share it with anybody you think would get some use or enjoyment out of watching it. Also, please subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell notification to get notified when I put new content out. I'll be back really soon with some more. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in. Ciao for now.